From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefanía Bravo, and this is From the South. Members of the Central American migrant caravan traveling towards the U.S. continue to arrive in Mexico City. Throughout Monday, migrants have arrived in the capital, 4 weeks after setting out from the Honduran city of San Pedro Sula. They are still nearly 500 miles away from the closest border crossing near Texas. Ahead of U.S. congressional elections this Tuesday, President Donald Trump has warned repeatedly about the caravan and has sent thousands of troops to the Mexican border.
Well, the truth is it's very difficult. We're only going to arrive to the U.S. carried by the hand of God. If God wishes, we'll get in there. But in the name of God, I believe we'll all get in. But yes, it's difficult. They say that Donald Trump has the whole army at the border, and they're saying that if we try to cross, they'll open fire.
But the dangers for these migrants are ongoing. Their biggest fear is being detained by federal authorities so they can be sent back to their countries.
Mexican authorities are still detaining migrants. Messages of support from various governors and even President Enrique Peña Nieto are of little comfort to them. They believe they are just for show. Since being on the road, immigration services continue to detain them. Sergio experienced the heavy-handed harassment by La Migra, what they call immigration services, who detained his wife and the rest of his group.
A few minutes ago, they detained 25 of us, so the rest of us ran to the fields. They attacked us. Many women have bruises from being hit.
That's why the various caravans are trying to join forces. They feel unity will make them stronger.
Compañero, que nadie se adelante, para que no nos vamos a agarrar. Ya no vamos a hacer presa para migración. Todos juntos y unidos, juntos y unidos, juntos y unidos, con todo, pues.
The People Without Borders organization has condemned the abuse and excessive use of force by authorities against migrants.
They need to stop attacking women and children. They need to stop violating their rights. If this is due to U.S. pressure, they need to detain us at their border, not in Mexican territory.
After another dangerous leg of the journey, they arrived at Pijijiapan's immigration checkpoint, which they crossed together to avoid more detentions. The constant threat by Mexican authorities is believed to be due to pressure of the U.S. government.
Honduran President Juan Hernandez has claimed that over 6,000 migrants who were taking part in the caravan have returned. He has reiterated that migrants were offered money in exchange for walking thousands of kilometers to the U.S. border.
Of those in the caravans, more than 6,500 have returned. We have 3,639 adults, 2,882 minors, 2,552 coming from Guatemala. And from these underage people, we received a report that 270 were traveling alone, as unaccompanied children. The organizers promised our countrymen money, food, transport during the entire trip. And they even encouraged them to participate in the caravan, claiming they would receive humanitarian visas or shelter to enter the United States.
A day ahead of the midterm elections in the United States, President Donald Trump has been campaigning across the country. On Sunday evening, he was in Georgia, where the Democrat Stacey Abrams is hoping to become the first black woman governor in the history of the United States. Trump called Abrams one of the most extreme far-left politicians in the country. Let's go to our correspondent, Jorge Gestoso, who brings us the latest on the elections from Washington.
Today, on the eve of the midterm elections, President Trump is planning to be in Cleveland, Indiana, and Missouri, and former President Barack Obama in Virginia, trying to catch the last-minute votes. What is very interesting is that 35 million Americans, almost 35 million Americans, have voted early, and that has changed the predictability of the polls because many of them are first-time voters and they don't know exactly the way that they were going to vote. So it's still a big question mark what is going to happen tomorrow. Trends are indicating that most probably Democrats are going to gain the House of Representatives. The magic number is 23 seats that they have to recover. They believe that they're going to go further than that. But in the case of the Senate, most of the polls are indicated that most probably the Republicans are going to keep the majority on the Senate. On the other hand, this is conceived as being is an agreement that is basically a referendum on the 22 months of the presidency of Donald Trump, for better, for worse, for better and worse, according to the pundit party will do it. It's going to be a way to reaffirm what he's been doing so far. Mostly he has put emphasis in immigration, and it's exacerbating hate and fear. By the Democrats, what they're putting on the table in the message is health care, and we'll have to see what is going to happen, but it's extremely unpredictable what we're going to see tomorrow. The presidency, according to the different polls, President Trump has about 46% of approval, 52% of disapproval, and that could play also a factor on both ways. So we are here and we're going to be doing reporting all throughout the day and all throughout tomorrow to keep you posted on what's going on these midterm elections.
And early voting is coming to a close across the country. People have been standing in lines to cast their ballot, with reported wait times as long as 2 hours. In cities like Chicago, turnout was high, with the largest number of ballots cast in the early morning hours. Experts believe that approximately 40 million early votes, including absentee votes by mail and in-person ballots, will likely be cast by Election Day. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel has met the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on his visit to Pyongyang. The two leaders discussed ways to boost bilateral ties in fields such as economy, culture, public health, and science and technology. Our correspondent in Havana, Cuba, Hernandez, brings us more.
Hola, un gusto saludarte. En efecto, gran repercusión internacional está teniendo.
The visit of Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel to North Korea has had a great international impact. Both nations have a number of ties in regards to cooperation and a shared international agenda. After receiving a big welcome in Pyongyang, Miguel Díaz-Canel will have a meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and other state officials. Díaz-Canel will also participate in an arts festival that will be celebrated in the May Day Stadium. Both leaders have already had dinner together, during which they talked about their willingness to reinforce relationships. With this visit, a clear message is being sent about who Cuba's allies are, despite the attempts by the U.S. to dismantle the Cuban political system.
En el estadio de fútbol 1 de mayo por invitación del presidente.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Former Peruvian presidents Alejandro Toledo, Ollanta and Pedro Pablo Kuczynski could be indicted under corruption charges in the car wash scandal. Some experts believe former President Alan Garcia and opposition leader Keiko Fujimori must also be included, but were protected thanks to Fujimorismo.
The Legislative Commission for the Lava Jato case concluded that 11 public projects executed by Brazilian companies like Odebrecht are linked to corruption cases. This has caused a loss of $7 billion for the Peruvian state. 3 former presidents and dozens of politicians have been made responsible for this, but others were excluded.
Keiko Fujimori is not part of the present investigation because she hasn't participated in any of the projects being investigated.
The commission also didn't include former President Alan Garcia in this report, which is criticized by different progressive groups.
It was his responsibility to make decisions, and he did. Minister Conejo is processing the report, but did Minister Conejo act on his own? Decrees were signed by the president and also by other ministers.
The investigation reportedly didn't include projects that may have implicated Alan Garcia.
Only in contracts, almost 3.5 billion were spent, plus cost overruns, which go from 27% to 52%.
Different groups have presented a minority report as an alternative.
We want them to either return the report to the Commission so they can include the responsibility of Keiko Fujimori as well as Alan Garcia, or to approve both reports in a complementary way. But one of these must be approved, because they are also responsible.
What everyone agreed on is to constitutionally denounce former presidents Alejandro Toledo, Ollanta Humala, and Pedro Pablo Kuczynski, among other authorities, and to ban them from taking any public position. This agreement will be voted on in the next few days.
3 Venezuelan soldiers guarding the border with Colombia have been killed in an attack by paramilitary forces. Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez has condemned this act and warned that Venezuela has no place for paramilitary groups.
Our men were ambushed. These people have murdered 3 members of our Bolivarian National Armed Forces, 3 National Guards. They were killed in Amazonas by a criminal group that is a byproduct of the internal war that exists in Colombia. In Venezuela, there's no room for armed groups that work outside the law, no room for paramilitary groups. We reject the inability of the Colombian state to not control these paramilitary groups, their violence and their drug trafficking.
This week, the lower house in Brazil is set to debate the School Without a Party project, or as it's commonly referred to, the School with a Gag Law.
Stakeholders from the educational sector join forces with social movements in Brazil to reject the Schools Without a Political Party project. They say it will legalize political persecution of teachers and will reinforce the sexist and homophobic culture of the new government.
The elected President Bolsonaro even said that he will close all the field schools. To him, these schools are ideological. They will create schools based on their experience, their culture, their reality. To us, a school has to have guarantees from the municipality and the state.
The approval of the project will prevent teachers from addressing gender issues, sexuality, and race. Some politicians are even calling for students to have the right to freedom of speech in the classroom, so they may challenge teachers with critiques of the new president-elect, Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro is even known for calling for the persecution of academics.
The president-elect, even before being elected, already said that all those schools will be closed. That means illiteracy will return. What we are defending is education and the constitutional right all children have to an education.
The project puts the job of thousands of teachers at risk and will set back scientific research, the plurality of thought, and the critical formation of young people.
Closing our schools is a clear persecution of the movement and the denial of the right to education to the children who are in the field. So we have several measures of this government that are going against the movements.
According to experts, the School Without a Political Party project will give a military intelligence organizations significant power, leading to a witch hunt similar to that of the opposition during the military dictatorship period. Days prior to the presidential runoff, military and electoral authorities raided 20 schools to prevent discussions on democracy, confiscated anti-fascist banners, and imprisoned teachers.
Prison workers' unions in Chile have called for a national strike. They announced they will block all entrances to the country's prisons.
We're starting a national strike of all prison workers right now. Each one of us in each prison needs to be united and stand strong with dignity for the future of prison workers in Chile.
Experts in Argentina expect inflation rates to rise as high as 47.5% for 2018, the highest since 1991.
The impact of the peso's devaluation in Argentina has affected everyone. Inflation in October alone increased by 6%, affecting the prices of basic products. During the last year, inflation grew to 50.1%, higher than every prediction made by members of Mauricio Macri's government.
The government is trying to keep the economy under control until next year's elections. And if it means destroying people's purchasing power and increasing tariffs, then they'll do it. Macri is not ruling for the people who have no money to eat and are being forced to fit the neoliberal vision.
A poll from Argentina's economic and political center shows that sales of basic products were reduced by 64%. Compared to other years, prices rose by almost 100%.
We are living a very concerning situation, especially for the smallest sectors. Each time people are buying less products as poverty increases. Even in middle and high-class sectors, the living standards have worsened.
High levels of inflation in 2018 has made consumers buy less meat, milk, and vegetables. Purchasing of these products was reduced by 65%, while fuel saw a decrease of 39%.
High levels of inflation affects the economy in general. That's very irresponsible and has revealed the failure of the government. They keep increasing tariffs and reducing currency to control inflation, and that doesn't work.
Mauricio Macri's government hasn't been able to stop inflation or the growing concern of people. The price of basic products shows the size of the crisis. People keep losing purchasing power and can expect it to get worse in the future. For 2019, inflation is expected to be higher than 27%.
Jamaica's Finance and Public Service Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says 90% of outstanding debt to China will be repaid in 10 years. Dr. Clark confirmed that 99% of loans from China are secured at fixed interest rates of 2% and 3%, the lowest in Jamaica's loan portfolio. Speaking at Latin Finance's third Caribbean Finance and Investment Forum in New Kingston, he added that loans from China only represent 3.9% of their $2 trillion debt. Local authorities in the Dominican Republic have called on citizens to take preventive measures for heavy rains affecting the country. According to the National Weather Office, that a tropical wave located over the east of the country will affect many provinces. They also said that rains will continue over the northeast, southeast, central, and border regions. El Salvador's government, through a new tourism initiative, is pushing to revitalize the Nahuatl language. It's aimed at ensuring indigenous people have a voice and visibility.
Children sing the national anthem of El Salvador. They belong to this indigenous community in the western part of the country. It's all part of a linguistics project aimed at reviving native languages in the region.
The idea or the aim of this project is to reach a new generation, so even when grandparents have passed away, the seed continues to flourish, and the Nahuatl language and culture lives on.
Another project aims to increase the production and marketing of clay handicraft.
This initiative has been abandoned for so much time now, it's finally been resuscitated. Our ancestors made only the pot and the skillet. Now we are diversifying and making candle holders, flower pots, glasses, everything that can be bought in a shop.
These initiatives are made possible with the financial and technical support of the Agricultural and Livestock Ministry. It's all part of the enterprise competitiveness program called Rural Sunrise.
We are determined to strengthen not only our identity, but our many talents, and at the same time, it creates employment opportunities.
Tourism can also be one of the main drivers of the community's economies. That's why these young guides are teaching visitors about the Nahuatl people culture.
Our ancestors, the Pipiles, performed their rituals right here, according to the stone we have in front of us. It is a stone they used for meditation while facing the waterfall. When they finished, they would go into the water. They would then emerge healed and healthy.
These projects have already had a direct impact on the quality of life of many families. The Rural Sunrise Initiative is spread across 12 municipalities. Over 6,000 families are benefiting from these social and environmental projects taking place in 85% of communities.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Iranian Army and Revolutionary Guard are carrying out military drills in the north of the country. The drills are taking place in a 500,000 square kilometer area and are expected to last until Tuesday. The move coincides with the U.S. government's reinstatement of sanctions to the country. Security forces in Egypt have killed 19 militants linked to a deadly attack on a bus carrying Coptic Christians last week. The Interior Ministry said the 19 militants were killed in a firefight with security forces. President Fattah Abdel El-Sisi called Coptic Pope Tawadros II to offer his condolences and held a minute's silence for the victims. The trial of Mexican drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman has begun in New York. He's charged with 17 counts of murder, drug trafficking, and money laundering. El Chapo is responsible for smuggling almost 200 tons of cocaine into the United States. Security has been tightened to prevent him from escaping, something he managed to do twice before. So, the police will close the Brooklyn Bridge to the public when he's en route to the hearings. His trial is expected to last more than 4 months. Rescue services in the south of Spain have picked up several hundred refugees from the Mediterranean Sea. Our correspondent in Andalucía, Sergio Rodrigo, has this report.
More
than 500 people have been rescued by Spanish Maritime Safety and Rescue Society, coming in 100 boats. More than 200 of the migrants have been transferred to the port city of Malaga, as you can see behind me, where the Red Cross has set up an emergency camp to assist these people. Among them was a pregnant woman in urgent need of help who was transferred directly from the boat to a hospital in Almeria. In recent years, the route through the Mediterranean Sea has been one of the most popular routes taken by migrants aiming to reach the European Union. In 2018, more than 45,000 people have tried to reach the continent through this sea route, but unfortunately over 560 people have died on their way, according to the International Organization for Migration. Rescue workers are also operational in the Strait of Gibraltar.
We thank Sergio Rodrigo for that report. Riots have broken out in Zambia's second largest city after rumors spread of the government selling a state-owned company to a Chinese company. However, government spokesperson Dora Sililla has dismissed the reports that Zambia Forestry and Forest Industries Corporation has been sold. Meanwhile, police have reportedly arrested 83 people in connection with the riots. The government of the Democratic Republic of Congo has been accused of allowing torture of political and human rights activists by security forces. A report by Freedom from Torture Group accuses the authorities of routinely carrying out gang rape, beatings, and electric shock treatment on detainees. It also stands accused of detaining activists in inhumane conditions and holding them without charge. School children have demonstrated against the use of fireworks in India as the country struggles with air pollution ahead of the famous Diwali festival. In the state of Punjab, children were holding banners reading "To save nature, say no to crackers." Their demonstration came just a day after air pollution reached hazardous levels in New Delhi. Diwali, the festival of light, is one of India's most important Hindu celebrations, symbolizing the spiritual victory of light over darkness. Now it's time to bring you more stories from around the world.
China has kicked off an import expo hosted by President Xi Jinping, who pledged to open up the Chinese market amid accusations of playing foul on trade. The president promised broader access to its economy by allowing increased imports and lowering tariffs. He also promised to clamp down on intellectual property infringements. In his opening speech, he condemned U.S. President Donald Trump's policies.
There are only better business environments, not best. All countries should strive to improve their business environments and solve their own problems, not always finding fault with others while glossing over their own, like shining a flashlight at others and not themselves.
The lawyer who helped acquit a woman accused of blasphemy in Pakistan has fled to the Netherlands to save his own life. Saif al-Muluk defended Asia Bibi while she was on death row since 2010 for allegedly insulting Islam. The case has already led to assassination of 2 Pakistani politicians and sparked widespread protests by Islamists calling for the judges responsible to be killed. Muluk says UN staff urged him to leave the country. He confirmed that he doesn't know the whereabouts of Bibi. At least 21 protesters have been injured by Israeli forces at the Gaza Strip. Palestinians have gathered in support of the launch of a flotilla called Freedom Ship 15 that set sail from the port of Gaza to try and break the Israeli siege. It was forced to return by the naval forces. They were fired on with tear gas and live ammunition. The wounded and those suffering from tear gas inhalation were taken to the local hospital for treatment.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And also join us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.